You forgive to free yourself from a prison. You don't free them. Forgiveness is a change in story. You go from telling a story of poor me, I'm a victim, to I was a victim. I learned how to cope, and now I'm back in charge of my own life. Those are so simple, but they took me decades to figure out. You watch yourself. You see how much your mental health is based on what you practice. So if you practice a lot of complaining, you're not going to be happy. If you practice finding fault with your partner, you're not going to be happy. That is a universal thing. So you want to somewhere ask yourself, what am I practicing? If I practice holding a grudge and bringing up the past all the time and blaming people, after a while, I'm practicing making myself less happy. Forgiveness is one of the names for stopping that practice of making yourself less happy.
Hey everyone, welcome to Best Life by You, the podcast dedicated to helping you overcome challenges around nutrition, mindset, training, relationships, and well, all of the above. I'm your host, Julia, and today we have a super special and inspiring guest with us, Dr. Frederic Luskin. So hello, how are you today?
Thank you. Hello.
You're welcome. Of course, I have a whole introduction of for everybody listening, Dr. Luskins is going to explain everything he does, but just a very brief introduction. He directs the Stanford Forgiveness Projects, researching and teaching forgiveness, mindfulness, and well-being. He created Stanford's Happiness Class and co-founded Life Works and Wellness Education at Stanford Medicine, teaches mindfulness and happiness in executive education, and coaches mindfulness for Stanford sports teams. He's the author of Forgive for Good, Forgive for Love, and the Forgive for Good Workbook for Recovery, and co-hosts the Voices of Peace podcast. You can learn more about him at fredluskin.com. So would you say that pretty much covers a little bit of you?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not, at this stage of my life, I'm not selling myself.
Yeah.
At a younger age, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that a lot of what you brought up is, I was a hippie, literally back in the hippie days. I know, and I get to teach a lot of the stuff that we paid attention to back when we were hippies. So I spend a lot of time on helping people be nicer people.
I love that. Well, this is something I was going to ask you of what inspired you? You already said being a hippie when you were younger had started some foundational, I guess places for where you're today. So I would say walk me and listeners through a bit of your path that inspired you, or if there was a specific moment to do what you do today, especially about forgiveness and why it's so important for people.
I can tell you, I grew up on Long Island, went to SUNY Binghamton. I'm a New York
I went
kid.
there for masters.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, about 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
I went there a long time
10
ago.
years ago too, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I was born in the Bronx. I'm going to say clearly my parents' values were instrumental. They had a deep belief that you wanted to do something with your life that was good for the world. And that influenced a lot of my decision making. When I got into Stanford as a doctoral student, it changed
Mhm.
my life. I had a BA from Binghamton, I had a master's from San Jose State, but those are all state schools. There was no, but getting into Stanford and meeting the professors and meeting the students and seeing the achievement changed my entire orientation to what I could accomplish. And it was transformative. Specifically in terms of forgiveness, I was really badly hurt by somebody. This is now 30 years ago, but really badly hurt. And I was a mess. And I didn't know how to get over it. And I didn't know how to unmess myself, I guess is the word. And I was miserable and I was annoying to the people around me. And one of my closest friends betrayed me. And I simply had no skills to cope with it. And literally one day my wife came to me and said, "Hey, grow up. Like, you can do better than this." And, she wasn't threatening me, but she was clearly lighting a fire under my butt.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what to do. And almost literally, the idea of forgiveness, like, had never entered my mind. And when it entered my mind changed a little. And then I unraveled what happened to me. And out of that unraveling, I created my dissertation on forgiveness. This is almost 30 years ago. And my dissertation was successful. And I started a career as a forgiveness teacher and researcher.
Mm. Wow. That's so you've been doing that for how long would you say?
The first beginning was 30 years ago,
Okay.
1996, maybe
And
1997.
you've continued that, and in from your dissertation, is that where you started to write your successful books that you have out?
Um, there was a lot of good luck in my career. So the dissertation was teaching Stanford students to forgive. I did one class for the public, and some guy attended the class and told a friend of his that the class was so helpful.
Hmm.
That friend was a book agent who called me the next morning and said, "You need to write a book." I didn't know how to write a book. I wrote a proposal. She sent it to an editor who wrote back basically, "This book is so boring that I don't even think this guy's mother would read it."
Aw.
I mean, he said he writes like a Stanford professor. Nobody will read this shit. So I had to learn how to write.
Hmm.
It was humbling, but really helpful.
So, when you were mapping out either your book or your courses, what did you find people needed to know the most about forgiveness?
First, that it's not the same as saying what happened is okay. They didn't mean it. It's not making excuses at all for bad behavior. Secondly, you don't have to get back in a relationship with somebody who treated you like crap. Those are the biggest things that keep people from even entertaining forgiveness. Then there's forgiveness is for you, not them.
Hmm.
Like, you forgive to free yourself from a prison. You don't free them they almost have nothing to do with it after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last of the absolutely crucial learnings is forgiveness is a change in story. You go from telling a story of poor me, I'm a victim, to I was a victim. I learned how to cope, and now I'm back in charge of my own life. Those are so simple, but they took me decades to figure out that succinctly.
Hmm. Do you think it's hard for people? Is there one specific thing that you find after all your experience that people have the hardest time forgiving? Like infidelity? Is it friendship betrayal? Is it kids? Is there something that you've seen as a pattern where people have a really hard time letting go and forgiving?
There's two different issues. One is some people can't forgive themselves,
Mm,
and other people can't forgive others. It's not universal. Some people let themselves off the hook for everything. Literally, they could murder somebody and they'll make it okay. But if somebody cuts them off in the freeway, they're out there with an Uzi. It's like there are people like that. And there are people who let other people do whatever they want, but they're full of self-attack. Those are two different things.
mm-hmm.
For the other stuff, the hardest by far is intimate relationship betrayal. And that's not just infidelity. There's all sorts of betrayals of trust. There's, hey, you're not taking care of the kid. You're not working. You're
Mm.
drunk all the time. You treat me like crap. But the feeling of being betrayed by your intimate partner, that's by far and away the biggest concern. For self-forgiveness, it tends to be things where acts of omission or commission harm people they love. So, all sorts of things that they did or didn't do, but it really harmed people they love. They have a really hard time releasing themselves from hostility.
Do you think it's something that needs to be taught or over time, or is it how we're born, we're raised? Because you work with people to teach them. And for me, at a young age, I've always been learned to just let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. I've had people, one of my best friends of 3 years betrayed me. It was a situation, she hit my car, things happened, and I was gaslit really badly. And I was more hurt over that than my very serious breakup that I had with my ex-boyfriend. And I was more hurt by that friend betrayal because of her projections on me. And I usually let it go. Like I let it go, and I spent a lot of time reflecting on how I was as a person. I'm like, if this my best friend is saying all these things about me, is this all true? Like, is this stuff that is true about me? And then I had a hard time forgiving myself. And I
Exactly.
had to have other friends sit me down and say, "You're not that way, Julia. You do not behave that way. You're not that person." She was just projecting her own behaviors on you. And it was very hard for me to kind of forgive myself, forgive her. But growing up, I've been very good at just letting things go and forgiving people, no matter what happened. So, is it something that people grow up learning and they, as an adult, can do? Or do you think it's like nature versus nurture kind of situation?
Let me start by a strong reminder that, what would I say, that forgiveness and unforgiveness are hardwired into your nervous system. So the templates are there. It's what gets stimulated and practiced. Some people have deeper templates in letting things go, and other people have deeper templates in nobody F's with me. Some of that's wired, some of it's genetic. We're not all starting with a level playing field. We have found when people ask me what's the most important result of our research, by far and away, it's the fact that forgiveness is a teachable skill, that you can teach people to practice forgiveness. You can practice it and get better at it, and you can use it to heal yourself even after years of still hating your parents at the age of 45. But the most important reality is it's a trainable skill.
So that would be for somebody that maybe grew up in a not stable house. Do you
Oh,
tend to see
absolutely.
that a lot more? Like comparative studies. I grew up with a mother and father together. And I mean, we brother and sister, we'd fight a lot and, young sibling stuff and stuff our parents would just constantly be like, forgive them. Like, why is it a big deal? Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. It's not a big deal. Stop taking it with you. So for me, I really have some people tell me I'm way too forgiving and understanding in situations. I remember this is back in high school. I had one of my girlfriends ask if she can date me and my high school boyfriend or whatever, or middle school, high school boyfriend broke up. And she came up and she's like, would you mind if I really like him? Like, can we start dating? And I was like, yeah, why not? Didn't work with me. And like, some people are like, what? Why would you let her? I'm like, well, he and I didn't work out, so maybe they're going to work out. And that was my mentality where some people were like, that goes against girl code, that goes against boy code, like you don't do that like that. I would never on this day date one of my friends' serious partners. I wouldn't. But back then I was like, whatever, we're kids, like doesn't really matter. And I know that some people would be very judgmental of that, of being like, why would you let something happen like it, like why would you put somebody in a situation or say it's okay for them to date the same guy you did? And I think it just goes with me being raised in that environment where my mom, like, she doesn't let anything get to her. Yeah.
One of the advantages that you did have as a kid, you grew up in an intact home.
Mm-hmm.
That's an advantage. But you grew up in parents who didn't meddle all the time. And they are finding now that parents who help kids solve things themselves, trust kids to work things out, and even struggle a little, end up much healthier and more resilient than kids who go running to mommy and daddy to solve things, or
I never
parents.
did that. My parents,
Well,
I've been on
the,
my own, and that's the hard thing, I
but
think.
they're finding that is such important stuff. As
Mm,
the younger generation now, they're much more helpless. They didn't develop the kind of
mm.
coping and trust that you did in your own ability.
Wow. Because it's interesting you say that, because I think of, even though my mom was like, let it go and stuff, she would make us figure everything out. I don't know how to spell this. Go use the dictionary. You figure it out.
Exactly.
My mom would never, she'd be like, go figure it. I don't know if it's because we're girls, because she treated my brother very differently.
Mm.
There was a little bit more, like, he's the youngest one, so there was a little bit more coddling. But I just remember I would be like, how do I spell this? Look at the dictionary. You can't spell it for me? No, go get the dictionary and spell it yourself. Like,
Right.
that was something my mom told me. Even like filling out forms, my mom's like, go find a video to teach you how to do it. Like, even I've been on my own pretty much since 17. So now 14 years I've been on my own. Pay my college loans, pay everything myself, always have the past, 13 years. And it really came from my parents continuing to be like, you can figure it out. I can't tell you how to pay rent. I've never rented. You have to figure it out. You have to figure out how to pay the phone bill. You have to figure it out. Like, they're there to help if I really, really need. But there came a point when I was in college that I would call my mom for certain things, and she's like, just look it up. How am I supposed to answer that? Like, you need to learn as an adult how to take care of yourself. So that's the difference, I would say, like, than some of my friends where, like, their parents would pay for college. Their parents would give them a car, and I did not have that. So it was very different of, like, even doing Girl Scouts, volunteering. My mom would drop me off at the nursing home, and she's like, "I'll pick you up in 3 hours. Go volunteer." And, like, I wouldn't have a choice. I would be like, "I don't feel like volunteering right now." My mom's like, "I don't care. I'm dropping you off. You're going to do service, and I'll pick you up in 3 hours." Like, it was a whole different mindset of how I grew up and mentality of how I grew up, where I guess for me, I just try not to take things too personally, and maybe that makes forgiveness a little bit easier
Well,
for
that's
me.
a
Yeah.
part of forgiveness,
Mm.
is recognizing that most stuff is not personal.
Mhm.
People act for their own interests much more than they ever try to harm us. And in fact, one of the devastating realities of many of our wounds is people didn't think about us at all.
Mm.
They weren't trying to hurt us. They were so absorbed in what they needed and what they wanted that we were just like roadkill. But that's much more true than what were they thinking and blah, blah, blah. They were thinking about themselves.
Mm. I find that interesting because for me, I overthink about what people will think. For example, had my 30th birthday party I threw. I'm vegan. No one else around is vegan. And at my birthday party, I had no vegan food because I was catering to everybody else there. And I had friends come up to me and they're like, why is there no vegan food here? And I was like, "Oh, well, they're just making me a bowl in the back." And they were like, "You literally paid for your own 30th birthday party. Everybody's here and you have no food that you can eat." And I was like, "It's okay. It's more about the fun." And, like, I had to have friends sit me down and be like, "You can't do that. Like, for your wedding one day when you get married, do not do that." They were like, "Cater to yourself." Like, so I I think because also that's how I was raised, of like, give, 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 and think of other people first before yourself. And my mom was very much like that too, with even her own health. She would always care about other people before herself and take care. And it's like, I've switched that narrative to take care of myself as well. So, with forgiveness, though, like, do you have in your books that you've written, do you have a core methodology that you truly like believe in and believe that every single person should follow by? Or is there something in your book that you are like, everybody needs to take away this fact and practice it every day?
I can tell you that there are 4 components
Okay.
that people who forgive follow, but there's no perfect way of following them. So one of them is they start becoming a little more grateful for what they have, not just angry at what they don't have. So they'll be pissed off or they'll be vulnerable for months. And then one day they'll open the door and see the sun shining. And they'll go, "Ooh, what have I been missing?" So I'm going to start paying more attention to what I have, not just what I don't have. And that starts the process of forgiveness, because you see, it's a big world out there. It's not just what one person did to you. So that's one. Second, at some point, they recognize they have to calm down. So they can hate their mother for 30 years or whatever. And then one day they get off a phone call with mom and they're all bent out of shape and they realize, wow, I could get bent out of shape like this till I'm 90. I'm going to have to chill. And then the next time mom calls, they might chill in the middle of the call. That's another way you get to forgiveness. Those are essential.
Mm.
A third way is you have a thought one day that, wow, instead of just being an awful thing, maybe, maybe this is just the way life is, and you don't always get what you want, but you get some thought that comes in there that brings mental health with the thought.
Mm.
And the last piece is you realize that if I keep on telling a story about what a victim I am, my whole life will stink. And you start changing the story around. Those are the four components that are pretty universal, but you could fill in any technique and practices within those frameworks.
Hmm. So with those frameworks, do you find that there's a specific cultural or individual difference? I know you said how people are raised. Do you
Yeah.
think there's any kind of cultural difference that you've seen where people have an easier time following or a harder time following those, core components?
I mean, some cultures teach people to be very other centered,
Mm.
and some cultures teach people to be very self centered. Forgiveness is harder when you're very self centered because you create a bit of a world which should revolve around you. But we've worked with people from all over the world, and the gratitude can be practiced anywhere by anybody. The quieting down, hey, just take a breath, or go look out the window and notice the sun, or just, grab a bite of food that you like, but do something where you stop being so frustrated or angry. And anybody can practice a little different story. And you can ask yourself, well, if I tell this story, will my life be good? If I tell that story, will my life be good? That's how you forgive. You do these interwoven practices, and after a while, they alter that groove of a grudge and victimhood.
Hmm. It's this is something I heard a while ago. It's not from myself, so I'm gonna butcher it. But everything that happens to us or for us ends up just being a sentence in our life from a huge story, right? Like, so I had lived through a very traumatic tornado experience where a tornado had hit a house I was staying in. I very near death experience. People died in the house next to me, and this is back in 2020. It was very traumatic for me.
Wow.
Whenever I told oh, I'm blessed to be alive. I will say that. And it was hard for me to sleep for months, and it was like March 5th, 2020, and then when we came home, COVID happened, and it was just I had a really, really rough time. And I used to spend 20 minutes explaining my whole story to people. Oh, I lived through this. The second tornado came through. It knocked the whole side of the house. We're all hiding under this. Now, if you ask me, I was like, yeah, it was a tornado near death experience. I'm blessed to be alive. And a lot of things that happen turn into just a sentence. Even when people lose loved ones, it's of sharing what happened to their loved one. My mom, when I was 15, she had cancer. There was so much that went on. And now I can say, yeah, my mom survived having colon cancer when I was 15 years old and she's healthy. The narrative of how we share the story can also help us in a mindset way of how we wish to make people think about the story, if that makes sense. So,
I think you're
yeah.
selling some of your wisdom short. Like, yes, everything can become a sentence or an understanding. But when you've had experiences where you've grown from it, I think you're selling it short when you make it that short.
Mm,
Like, there's something of great value of saying, I had a near-death experience or whatever, and I really learned how precious life is. And, this is something where I do differently than I did before
mhm.
because this was so transformative. I think that would be better for you because it would reinforce that groove of how much you've learned,
Gratitude.
how strong you are, and what you have to offer the world.
Mm. It's
The
that
neg
gratitude component. Oh, go ahead.
the negative story, yeah, that you can make a sentence, but you can talk also in that story about how you've grown. When this person broke up with me, I was a mess. But I realized that, maybe I wasn't as grown up as I could be, and I figured out how to do this. You can always add what you've learned, what you can share, and how you now are different. Those are helpful to people you talk to.
Mm. And it highlights the forgiveness or that forgiveness component of looking at it at the positive gratitude lens.
As
Uh,
what I
yeah.
have overcome or transformed.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, have you, I mean, yes, you've had experience, I'm sure, but were there any very transformative stories that you'd want to share of somebody who had something they thought they couldn't forgive and how they've come and how long it took them to either forgive that situation
All
that
right.
you'd be willing to share?
I'll tell you one from me
Okay.
personally
Yeah.
where my mother-in-law and I did not get along.
Okay.
And oh, 15 years. Um, I'd go visit them and it was annoying and it caused my wife and I a lot of conflict.
Mm,
So we fought a lot about visiting her parents. It was at least 10 years, if not 15. And one day I'm there and my mother-in-law does something that I find insulting. And I run out of the house and, anyway, I'm behaving badly. And I call up close friends to complain about my mother-in-law. And the friends say, you always call up to complain about your mother-in-law. And that's what stopped me. I realized at that moment from their feedback, I was a broken record and nothing was happening. Like there was no living going on.
mm,
This shell of a person was visiting. He got triggered. He told people nothing learned. And the reason I didn't grow is I kept on blaming my mother-in-law. So that not only changed me, but it was one of the leading influencers in how I oriented my forgiveness work. Like I
mm.
took my learning and turned it into a very important tenet. That's my story. 15 years, it's a
Wow.
long time.
Yeah.
The story that was probably most poignant to me in my whole career, we did a research project with mothers who had had their children murdered. And they were from Northern Ireland, and the Catholics and the Protestants, and they were all moms with murdered children. And we had them at Stanford for about a week, sent them back to Northern Ireland, and invited them and a dozen more people back to Stanford for a little wider catchment, not just moms who had had children murdered, but anyone who had had an immediate family murdered. And one of the moms brought one of their grown children, probably like your age
Mhm.
at that time. And the woman came up to us and said, basically, thank you for giving us our mother back.
Wow.
Like before this, she was just buried in bitterness. It was all about the past. And she came back and basically said, I want to live. And that was the most evocative, just powerful. It wasn't, all syrupy and
Mhm.
everything's okay. And no, it was awful. But she chose to live, and she again chose to parent the children she had. That's the most powerful experience that I've had teaching.
I've I have thank you for sharing that. I've heard actually quite a few stories and through sermons from church, from online, of this one story of this mother who had her son murdered, and it took her like 10 or 15 years to go visit the murderer in prison. And he had been so apologetic, he had grown, and that they developed a relationship from forgiving, that she was able to forgive the man who murdered her son. And that I think is the hardest forgiveness you can ever do as a parent,
The
like for a
only
parent.
the only pushback on that is it's so painful
Mhm.
that can push people to understand they have to forgive or they're not going to
Mhm.
survive.
Can people live without forgiveness in
Of
a healthy
course,
way? Healthy way.
some people compartmentalize things so they just don't go there. That's not as character creating as forgiveness, but it's effective. Some people simply say, I'm never going to talk about it again. Like, I'm just never going to talk about it.
Mhm.
And they follow through on that. And that keeps it buried a little, but that can be effective. The most powerful people, though, are the ones who admit that I moved on from bitterness. I changed my story, and I don't need that anymore. I'm back in life. Those are the most powerful stories.
Have you researched, or this might be a little distasteful, but people who murder and what are they? Psychopaths, serial killers. Have you come across I'm trying to think of the words. Clearly I don't go down that path. Clearly something is missing in their brain. Have you seen any that have been remorseful or come across any person that's ever murdered somebody who needed to forgive themselves and become a better person?
Yeah, of course. I mean, not necessarily
Serial
like
killers, but like
serial killers,
yeah.
but I've known people in political violence who were horrible, in South Africa or
Mhm.
Sierra Leone or Ireland, where they were once filled with hate. And I've seen them make complete transformations. Complete.
You think it's from any kind of coaching? Do they come to it on their own, or do these people usually have something or someone pushing them?
It's a good question. I don't
Okay.
know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Something opens their heart back up and they become remorseful for what they've done. But deeper than that, they realize that they're still alive and they can make a positive difference in the world.
Mm.
That's what we all need.
Mhm. Yeah. That's and I was going to ask it one of my other questions with this is when it comes to forgiveness, what or how do you measure the impact of forgiveness on physical health, relationships, and mental health? So, physical health, have you noticed a difference? People who are I guess, more forgiving than
Yeah.
those who are not on their
Well,
physical health
for relationships,
or that. Yeah.
it's one of the most important predictors of a long-term happy marriage.
Mm,
That you can't be in a long-term happy marriage without forgiving your partner pretty
mm,
regularly.
yeah.
That was unknown, but research showed that it is critical because that person's going to screw up. They're going to be a pain in the ass. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to be the whole deal. And both people need to forgive each other. A mental emotional help, it has a lot of data. It reduces depression, it reduces anger, it increases hope, it increases like a sense of compassion. It it decreases the rumination and stuff.
Mm,
Physical well-being, there's some hints, but the data isn't robust.
mm.
The biggest thing that forgiveness does is reduces your stress. So when you're not sitting around arguing all day long with your own life, you have less stress. When you're not saying that shouldn't have happened, this person shouldn't have done this, why were they doing that? When you're not filling your mind with those kind of thoughts, you have a lot less stress, and that leads to physical benefit.
Do you think talking about relationships, that lack of forgiveness is a huge reason people get divorced?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's number one? Or you think that's up there with like top three?
I have no
Yeah.
idea what rank it is,
Yeah.
but I
But
do know that there's research that when criticism turns into contempt, the relationship is on its way out. So you can have a difficult relationship where people criticize each other and they argue. It may not be that pleasant, but it's not heading to divorce. Contempt means not just don't I like what you do, but I don't like you. And you go from like you didn't clean the dishes to you're a slob. And the minute contempt becomes greater than criticism, that's when the relationship starts to become really vulnerable. And so, one of the purposes of forgiveness is to allow you to forgive some of the actions so it doesn't have to turn into contempt.
mm, wow, that's so full of. I mean, there's so much to unpack because I'm thinking of it when somebody says, because I mean, you've heard it of like, wow, you're a slob. Wow, you're so lazy. Instead of saying those words to people, you're so lazy, you're so this, I wish they weren't this way. It would be, wow, they sit on the couch all day long. Is that like a proper, like, would you say, oh, wow, they sit on the couch, watch TV all day long instead of saying, wow, they're lazy? It's
Well,
the
you can say they sit on the couch all day, but that doesn't mean that they're
lazy.
defined by laziness. They may have issues,
Mhm.
but when you globally label somebody, you're eliminating their complexity. So they no longer have a way out of your judgment.
Got it. Okay. So it's not even a room for improvement. It's like, I already labeled you as this, so you can't improve. So if you're saying you're so lazy, it's like, well, where am I going to improve? Where it's like, wow, I come home every day and the dishes aren't done and you're on the couch. That gives you an opportunity to be like, oh, I can actually fix this by doing
Or you can
dishes.
ask them,
Yeah.
can you change? Can we work something out? But when you it's almost like deciding that
Mm,
they're hopeless.
that's powerful.
True, too.
No. Have you seen any kind of, in your research, have you seen a different profession I know I asked cultural, a different profession that typically struggles the most with forgiveness.
No, I have no idea.
No. Okay. I was wondering if it's like
I do
some,
know that
yeah.
it's harder for a narcissist to forgive. Older people tend to have a little easier time because they know they're not going to live forever. And if they don't get rid of this crap, it's going to linger. Younger people think they live forever. So who cares if I hate somebody for 2 years? Um, there are certain people whose nervous systems get agitated so quickly that they have a hard time letting stuff go.
Mm.
But I have no idea about professions or
Well,
anything like that.
I was just wondering. It was just
Yeah,
curiosity.
of
So,
course.
with what we're talking about, is there anything in particular that you typically like to highlight or like people to know? Or is there anything, we haven't covered? Yeah, because I know there's so many things we haven't covered, but just for you, is there something you typically like to share with people to make sure, whether it's a presentation, a lecture, of something that they should walk away with or start practicing today? I mean, you said gratitude, you said those things, or anything else that people should know when they're at different stages of life. Just any kind of advice.
If you look at mental health and you watch yourself, you see how much your mental health is based on what you practice. So if you practice a lot of complaining, you're not going to be happy. If you practice finding fault with your partner, you're not going to be happy. That is a universal thing. So you want to somewhere ask yourself, what am I practicing? If I practice holding a grudge and bringing up the past all the time and blaming people, after a while, I'm practicing making myself less happy. Forgiveness is one of the names for stopping that practice of making yourself less happy. That's as simple as I can get for why
Mm.
it's of value.
That one, that's why, even for myself, I will remind myself, you're beautiful, you're strong, you're so great, like, you could do anything. Even if I don't always believe it, I say it because just like you listen, other people listen, you listen to yourself. You're gonna hear
That's
your
it.
voice more than you hear anybody else's.
By a magnitude of a huge number.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Why do you think people
So,
are so critical on the Oh, go ahead. I was gonna just
no,
ask about,
but
like, why
so
are people so
it's
critical of
just that
themselves?
the we are to a good degree what we have created habits out of and what we practice. And we try to remind people to put forgiveness on your menu so you can practice it when you need it, and it will make your life easier.
Mm. Something everybody needs to take away. Everybody
Yeah,
listening needs to start
everybody.
practicing that. The
And it,
speaking to yourself. Oh, go ahead.
no, and the only thing we did was create a training program which anybody can use. I mean, the book I've written, Forgive for Good, that's the most popular self-help forgiveness book. It's simple. It's like everything I've talked to you about is simple. That was our purpose, to try to use research and figure out a skill that we could help people simply
Mm.
incorporate into their life.
And it's easy enough. It's easy enough. It could be somebody cutting you off in traffic, not
That's it.
taking it internally. All right, maybe they're on the way. I mean, I used to do this. I'm like, maybe they're on their way to go like meet their wife at the hospital. She's about
Exactly.
to give birth, or
That's it.
or somebody just passed away. Like, I need to remember, even when I get, like, if I get a common cold or something, I don't get sick, like, often, but if I did get a common cold, I tend to be upset because I'm like, "Oh, it slows me down," but then I'm like, "Pause. Not a big deal. There are people out there fighting diseases, fighting illnesses, fighting things
Exactly.
they can't. Not a big deal. So what? You're sick for a couple days.
So
It's not a big
you
deal.
practice
Yes.
mental health.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so. I do because
Exactly.
as a business owner, you have like I'm sole on my own. I don't have any help. I can't take things internally. People don't want to work with me. I can't be like, well, it just wasn't a fit. That's okay. They don't want to work or they discontinue working with me. That's okay. I helped them where I could. It's like I don't want to get into this mindset of critiquing all these little things. Like this is very first world example. I had gotten my nails done a week ago. They are very long, and I told them I did not want them this long. But I had to run, and I was like, I can't sit there with you guys fixing it. So I was very annoyed because I'm like, I can't, what can I do with these long nails? And I had told a few people of how frustrated I was because they made comments. They're like, your nails are so long. Your nails are so long. And I'm like, I know they're long. I'm not used to it. But then in retrospect, I'm like, Julia, it's 3 weeks of long nails of adapting. It's not the end of the world. Like, you deal with it. So what? It's going to be annoying for 3 weeks, 3 weeks out of your entire life. It's not a big deal. So,
And those are
yes,
happiness
yes,
practices.
yes, absolutely.
And when
So,
you ask me, like, what I would like to leave people with,
mm-hmm.
it's that idea of practice for your own benefit.
Yep, yep. I would strongly agree with that. So, your biggest takeaways, you would say, is practice the forgiveness, practice your mental health of like situations, assessing them, and anything else that's really big that you think people would go on to live their best life to help them live their best life.
That forgiveness is a form of kindness.
Mm,
You don't need to judge yourself or other people so harshly.
yeah, yeah, that's so well put. So I mean, thank you, like so much for taking the
You're
time
welcome.
to meet with me and talk about forgiveness. I mean, I know you have a very busy schedule and you're super successful, and I really appreciate that because on my podcast, I love to have people who are experts in their field. I love to have people who are so well versed and well lived, like, and they can offer something to people listening. And it's great to have people who are so well versed in the health field help people be healthier, like in whether it's nutrition, whether it's mindset, which I truly believe this can't change unless this changes. So you have to work on your mental health first. But I thank you so much though for taking the time to be with me
I mean,
today.
you can tell I've been answering these
All these
questions
questions
for
forever.
forever, and you know, it's you want to have a thing that you contribute to this world and then
Mhm.
share it.
Yeah.
Hey, where do you live in Westchester?
White Plains area, West Harrison? Do you
You
know
know,
that
I'll
area?
tell you a funny story, and then
Yeah.
this is honestly a funny story.
Tell
When
me.
I got married, I was really a hippie. I mean, I had a vegetarian restaurant on the beach in California. I was a total hippie.
Oh my god.
We were serious vegetarian hippies. We had spiritual slogans on chalkboards. I mean, like the real hippie stuff. My in-laws lived in New Rochelle, I think.
Yeah, I know New Rochelle.
Right, I'm just saying. And I showed up without a suit for my wedding in their backyard. And my father-in-law was horrified that no person in my world gets married. I mean, they had a big house in New Rochelle near the
Yeah.
water. It was beautiful. So he dragged me like the day before the wedding to the Lord and Taylor's in White Plains and bought me a suit which I wore for that wedding and
Yeah.
maybe one other time in my life.
Wow.
but I think I still have it because I never wear a suit.
Yeah.
But he would not tolerate his daughter getting married to somebody without looking appropriate. So that was my experience with White Plains. Is that Lord and Taylor still
That's
there?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
It may not be. This was
I don't
long
yeah, I don't
time
think
ago.
so. Wow. So what made you stop wanting to practice that or even close your vegetarian restaurant?
My wife got pregnant and I had to get a real job.
Okay.
There was It was
Yeah.
too iffy. It was so hard
Yeah,
and
it's a lot of work
it's a lot of work. Yeah.
to
But
have a restaurant.
I loved being in business for myself. Anyway, you're a lovely young woman.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for reaching out.
Yeah,
And
thank you
I
so
think it's
much.
really cool that you know two of the Nicks.
Yeah. Work with them, it's absolutely a blessing, beyond a
My
blessing.
gosh.
So
Well, and
I'm
I'm
yeah,
still at my age, I still watch all the games.
that's great. As you should. As you should. Even
What's
being in
that?
California. I said as you should. Lifelong Knicks fan.
Yeah, but I haven't lived in New York in like 40 years.
That's okay.
But
That's
you're not
amazing.
a big basketball fan, right?
It's I don't typically watch all the games, no. I care more about, like, my job and helping them,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I'll watch the games, but I don't watch I'm not, like, a die-hard fan.
Is there
I
another
just
team that you do root for? You're not a sports fan.
No, it's not a sports I just haven't followed I grew up on music, like, my dad was in a band. I grew up in a
Good.
different area, but I mean, I've watched sports, gone to sports games, that
Yeah.
but it also kinda helps because some people get starstruck, and I'm like, "I don't care." I was like, doesn't matter to me. I don't mind working with celebrities, I don't mind working with high-end people, like, it's where some people would maybe look at it a different way, but the chef and I, we barely watch games because 'cause we're usually working.
But there is something cool
Yeah,
about working with a celebrity.
yeah. Oh, it's
I
a
mean,
blessing. Yeah.
I I have done a a little bit of coaching work with people in Hollywood, and it's cool. I'm just,
Yeah, it
they
is.
bring a different energy, and I like it. Anyway, thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much for being on, and everybody listening, I'm gonna drop, Fred's information I'm calling you by first name basis here, information below, and everybody keep living your best life. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Best Life by You podcast with yours truly. I hope you go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and stay up to date with all the latest information. You can also follow me on Instagram at Julia_BestLifeByYou for more humor, podcast information, and all the above. I hope to see you soon, and let's continue to keep living your best life.